Hi everyone, thanks for joining us tonight. Myself, Justin, and the two skulks, who I'm sure you all know well. Um, Tonight we're just going to have a look at what Figma released at their recent config event. In particular, we're going to look at the automated site builder, and if we've got some time, we'll look at the Make tool, which is a code generation user that's using Claude under the hood. We can have a look at those things, but just generally have a discussion around what this means for designers, developers, and those of us who work in this particular space, and maybe kind of where we think Figma might be going with all of this, and kind of maybe a broader question on what it means to be a designer and front-end developer in the next couple of years. Yeah. As usual, just thanks to our sponsors, NML and IO, who allow us to bring these things to you. And if you aren't aware yet, please join our Discord. We'll post the link in the chat. If you've got any comments or questions, just post them in the stream chat. They do come through to us here in the studio, and we'll just pop them on the screen as they come in. So feel free to ask those questions. We have a Takealot voucher to give away to the best question to be decided in a way we haven't talked about yet, but we will. Okay, I think that's the introduction.
I think we can just do it based
the chat.
Yes, yeah.
Does this now make you eligible for the voucher?
I don't know. It's like, who's going to dethrone me? That's all I want to know. Is like if the best comment or the best question wins, like, and there's only one, like,
no, the voucher rolls over to the next one. Like the lotto.
Yeah. So, but yeah, as Justin said, we'll be chatting a bit about Figma Sites. I've actually been reading up about it quite a bit because I'm I think it's I don't. There's always a temptation to kind of get too much into the gatekeeping and kind of like the negative aspects, and and there's a ton of videos out there just like talking smack about it. I don't know. Like, to me, that's not inherently an interesting conversation. So I think from my side, I'm more interested in what is the implications in terms of where does this fit into the bigger ecosystem in terms of design and UI and UX design, and also what does it say about kind of the state of the current ecosystem, and also why are people not using PenPot yet? That as well. So. But yeah, there's a lot to go through. So as Justin mentioned, like any questions in the text chat, and then we'll throw them up on the screen and try to answer them as best as we can. Are we going to dive straight into it? And I do think amongst the three of us, I think Skalk Neetling. So FYI, Skalk Neetling did a quick video on Figma Sites, a very angry video. I like Skulk. There's nothing quite like an angry Skulk. But from that video, as I understand it, you don't actually have access to it, Skulk Neetling.
I couldn't play with the thing because paywalled. So
yes, so I just have a regular Figma subscription for my contract work, but I know like Justin has like the super amazing enterprise like insider tracked, so like he's probably the best one to be in the driver's seat for this one. He probably has all the bells and whistles. So I think maybe let's just start there. Just doing a quick overview of what it is, how it works, and so forth, and then we can start kind of unpacking the implications and our thoughts on it.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that. I'm going to share my screen. Right. Sorry, I just want to make some space here. Okay. So this is if I click here, this is what Figma has added, and you can see all that buzz, site, and make, and they're all still in beta. And these were all announced at config. Available on all. They should be on They should be coming to free plans but only when they're out of beta. Yeah, and then they'll have limitations on them. They're only available in paid plans at the moment. And of course, there's been no talk of how much they're going to cost. At the moment, they're free. Yeah, so I'll just go through what the flow to create a site, and then I've already generated one and published it, so we can have a look at that. And then I'll also we can also just have a look at Make as well, which is a prompt-based tool. So when you go and create, say, site, there are all these pre-made templates. Yeah. And you can start from a blank thing in which you build your own, or you can select any of these templates. And if you go and view template, it shows you all of the pages that are available to that, and then you can go use this template. And it then goes and now has a set of styles.
So that template, so just for clarification, that template is purely just a Figma template. There's nothing special Figma site-esque about it. It's okay.
Nothing at all. It's purely a Figma template. And as you can see here, it follows all the, it's got auto layouts and text styling. Everything is exactly as you would if you were designing this yourself. Yeah. So and then there's all these assets, and you can see here there's a whole bunch of components as well, with various properties that have been set up. And then
so are these kind of what they provide in terms of, hey, here's some templates that actually work pretty well with the Figma site stuff, as opposed to if you were to start on a blank and start going wild, you might have mixed results. Whereas I guess they've set this up in a manner. Okay, so this is more kind of like for showcasing purposes. The intent here isn't necessarily okay. This is for showcasing purposes.
Yeah, but you can start from scratch. So you can go to blank site, and then you can attach your libraries and styles and variables and all that sort of stuff if you work that way, and then build it out yourself. Or you can just literally go and add, you can edit these kinds of things, these, text items or whatever they are.
So this looks very much like something you would find in the community, like library stuff.
So what they will, sooner rather than later, a whole bunch of things are going to be published to the community stuff for sites. As they did with slides most recently.
And once again, there's nothing special about it. It's just like kind of like optimized for the site generator.
Yeah, there's nothing special about it at all.
Okay.
And then you can add a page, and then if you go to plus here, you'll see there are a bunch of predetermined blocks and components that you can add. So you can drag like I did that twice. You can drag these components onto your canvas. They're all in auto layout. They're all these kinds of things.
Looks very,
and so on.
Very Framer-esque.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, and they're extremely generic. You're not going to find anything particularly interesting here. And what you can do here is you can go into this, but you can see it's just a Figma thing. Yeah, there's nothing special about it at all. But what we do have in sites that we don't have elsewhere is interaction. So you can now make this interaction by adding various kinds of things here, like a link, for example, to a page or a URL, an interaction, press, reveal, scroll, play, and so on. Okay, so those are all addable, and then they get converted.
Very similar to what you would do with like prototypes. It's obviously just like kind of more specific to a site than just kind of some idea of a general prototype.
Exactly. Yeah. What you can also do is you can add your own libraries here. Yeah. So if I go add libraries and I go to my teams, you can see these are all our NML libraries here. So you can add your own components for easily inserting those if you want to. Okay, and then site settings, you can go and add, so this is now we're very much in like Webflow kind of territory.
Even the layout reminds me very much of Webflow, although just a light mode
similar
version of Webflow.
Yeah. So yeah, add all your SEO stuff, your Google Analytics, your sharing, and custom code. Yeah, just like Webflow, actually. Yeah.
Release ChatGPT.
So you can go and add, your your jQuery or whatever you want. Yeah. Or
basically tag manager. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, they take care of that for you. You just need to add your ID. Yeah. Okay, and then you can publish it. And when you click publish, then there's sorts of these issues. So I just did this one earlier and then published it. And that is now available on this URL, which is just automatically generated. Once you have done that, you can, once you've published, you can connect a domain. So again,
I wanted to ask that. Okay, so you can have your DNS into it. Interesting.
Yeah, so you can connect your domain and update your name servers and whatnot.
Okay,
but only after you publish, obviously.
Yeah, sorry? But I would have not expected that for something that's in beta. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah. And this is the site that is now being generated from that layout.
Just don't open your dev tools.
Well, we have
whatever
to.
You do, don't open your dev tools.
No, we kind of have to, I'm afraid. Because, if this looks fine, right? It's actually quite a nice design. The typography is nice. It's, it's loading custom fonts. It's doing all the things we want to be doing. Sticky headers and, all sorts of stuff that we do. I mean, inspect this big header.
Does it still do the thing where it makes the last letter a span? I know a lot of people.
They fixed that.
Because I know, it did this weird thing where it made every last letter in a paragraph it's an individual span for some reason.
Well, first of all, let's look at this. This is a P tag.
Yep.
For the top level header of your site is being rendered in a P tag. There's no.
Can you turn on the accessibility inspector?
Oh, dude! Oh man,
the little dude over there. There's a little,
dude.
With his arms
we're just going straight in.
Yeah. Sorry, I usually do this in Firefox. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh no. Here we go.
Here we go. Generic.
Hang on to your butts. Here we go. All right.
Yeah. So that immediately shouldn't be a paragraph. There should be some kind of heading hierarchy. If we look at so this is the logo link. It's also a paragraph.
Yeah.
Let's just see what that structure is in the HTML. There's a div. It's a P. Oof. So this isn't even an anchor tag. Yeah. And there's some weird.
Loving that camel case class name. I don't think I've ever seen camel case adjust later. I don't think I've ever seen anyone write class names in camel case. I've seen everything except camel case.
Yeah. So this isn't even a link here. And the containing div has a role of link.
Yeah. But the thing is, I think when it comes to like semantic HTML, I think the jury isn't out in terms of that. I think everyone is in 100% agreement that like the HTML it spits out is absolute hot garbage. I don't think there's any discussion there. So to me, what's the more interesting question is not necessarily should you use this now to build a site, but where can this possibly go? And the places where this can possibly go is those places that are useful. So in other words, is it worth keeping an eye on this? Look at that. Because like a lot of stuff that end up being very promising start out like really like wonky. I mean, the precursor to Tailwind, Atomic CSS, was like universally hated. I don't know if you remember that, Justin. I think it was by Yahoo, Atomic CSS, then kind of like Tailwind effectively just took the idea and iterated on it a bit, and like now Tailwind's like universally loved. So I think I'm intentionally trying to not get into the look at this, look how bad this is mindset, because I think that kind of closes some doors on interesting conversations that can be had around this.
No, sure, I do agree with that.
And I think we're also under like one should be careful to not be under a misperception in terms of like how good the baseline HTML is that is out there in the world. Like it's not like it's perfectly semantic HTML being pushed out by everyone, and now this comes along and like ruins it. It's like we're already on a downwards curve when it comes to accessibility and semantic HTML.
We certainly are. We certainly are, but the ease of use of this, I think is dangerous.
Yes. How does that compare to something like VZero? I don't know. Have you looked at like what I haven't played extensively with VZero. I think they dropped some more stuff recently for VZero.
VZero works okay.
Is it?
It generates properly structured HTML.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So maybe we should just look at this make thing. Quickly.
Yeah.
So this is using Claude, and this was the prompt: design a user-friendly sign-up flow. This was just a pre-made prompt. I just clicked the button. I didn't put this prompt in.
Yes.
Left panel carousel, right panel sign-up form with Google and Apple multi-step thing. So what I find interesting is the attributions file, but let's get back to that. Here's what it's built.
Okay, interesting.
And this is the fully functioning carousel. Why you'd need one, I don't know. But anyway, that's that's another discussion. And here we've got, I'm not going to put my email in here.
So what I'm curious,
and this is a fully working multi-step UI.
So what I'm curious about is like, so a lot of times when people demo this stuff, like they kind of do things that are very well-established patterns.
Sure.
I'd be curious how well something like this performs when you do something that's very novel. Or like, so yeah, we can try that out a bit later, I guess. But I think that's also part of the discussion. And like, I think it's worth getting into that a bit, is Let me just see if there are any questions. Yeah, no, I'm not going to answer.
Not yet.
Not going to answer the. No. I see someone asked about React or Angular in 2025.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I mean, I can't zoom in here, unfortunately. But it's properly structured. It's using Tailwind correctly. There's no issues with that. It's got a global Tailwind, but this is just a generic Tailwind. Yeah, nothing going on there. And then if we look at components, it's designed this error image with fallback. Fine. It's designed this carousel. It's using Lucide. It's using use effect.
A use effect.
Yeah. I mean, not required.
Yeah.
But
and
anyway.
What is up with those use callbacks? Why are you? Yeah. Why does it want referential equality there? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't need any of that. This is a progress indicator, which is also horribly overdone. A sign-up form, So look at all this set up here. I mean, this is easily,
Yeah, I mean, like to be fair, it's about on par with a lot of junior code that I've seen.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably it's probably a bit better than a lot of junior code I've seen. Like if I were to ask a junior to do a carousel for me.
Yeah, it's probably better than that. But here we have the entire ShadCN UI library is imported.
Okay,
plus Tailwind. And then the attributions are components from ShadCN and Unsplash. No mention of Tailwind.
Okay.
And it works fine. You can step through. It does everything. Of course, it's not going to save any data or anything like that. Back and forward work. It's all there.
But I mean, this is such an established pattern.
Exactly.
I mean, if you if you were to look for that type of layout and login and whatever, you'll find hundreds of examples. So
exactly.
I'd be curious how it does if you, I don't know, ask it to do a airline here's something. Ask it to this is a good UI one. Ask it create a screen to select what seat you want as while you're booking a flight, what seat on the plane you want. That's one I usually use to give my students. I think that's a very interesting one to solve. Blong.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious how it performs with this type of stuff. Thinking. Because there's a lot of interesting decisions you make there in terms of the semantics of the elements that you use, and so I think this is it's probably just but see, it's probably just going to give you a very reduced solution where it's you have 3 drop downs where you select it almost feels it feels like my if I were to take a guess, I'd say it's going to take a very reductionist approach to it's going to almost take a very simplified solution. Oh, well, that seems interesting. It seems to be doing some type of matrix or grid or something there. Interesting. I don't know. Maybe I'm pleasantly surprised. Okay. I am pleasantly surprised. Yeah, because that's the way the pilot is facing. I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm not going to lie.
This is very well laid out.
Yeah, once again, it's probably better than most juniors or intermediates would do. Okay, can you select another one as well? I'm pleasantly
No.
surprised. I'm not going to lie.
You can only select one.
Yes. So,
Can you tab through it?
Let's not get carried away.
yeah. Listen here, buddy. Like
you can.
But can you use your cursor keys to move down to another line?
No, you can only tab and space to select. So you can tab and space.
But here's the thing. This is probably better than 80% of airline booking like screens already.
Probably.
You know, like a lot of them just have like an image with the I don't know if you remember like the HTML map thing that you can put on an image where you can specify zones that are clickable, Justin. A lot of them use something like that. So I'm pleasantly surprised. Okay. Yeah.
So type errors, but that's fine. Easily fixed. Price is undefined.
So my expectation here would be that you don't use this out of the box. You know, like I think like this, like I would assume this is kind of more in terms of a thinking process, in terms of thinking what are ways that this can be done.
Yeah,
I would. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So I'd be curious just if you were to summarize your thoughts on Figma Sites and kind of Make and so forth. Justin, what would you say in terms of your impressions of it?
Let me unshare so we just chat. Scott Neertling, I think in your video that you did, I think you started off by saying you were expecting it to be like a quick prototype kind of tool. Is that did I remember that right? Yeah. So I definitely think that would be where way more value would lie for something like this in a design process, a design and dev process, than in actually creating a site that you're going to publish and make live. Yeah. If anyone out there has ever wrestled with Figma prototyping, it's terrible. I mean, don't even bother. Yeah, the amount of time you spend on that, it's a complete waste of time. Yeah. But if I could take this site tool and say, here's our application. Now let's create these relationships between these elements, so that we can quickly prototype a feature, send it out, get feedback, revise. Yeah, that would be incredibly useful to me. I don't think that Sites is geared in any way to do that. It's there to knock out a quick landing page, a marketing site, a brochure site. And to some extent, that's fine if they come along and they fix all these quality issues with what's being generated. Yeah. I don't think that's particularly... it's no different to Theme Forest, right? Where you buy a pre-made HTML template and go and change the logo. It's really not that much different to that, and I don't think it's going to affect the way people do things much, to be honest. This Make tool, you can just go to Claude and do exactly the same thing.
So the thing is, yes, sorry, I'm about to interrupt you. I should restrain myself a bit.
One thing I haven't tried with this Make tool is you can drop your design in there. So you can drop a frame from a Figma design and see what it does. Maybe I'll do that in the background while guys are discussing things.
See, for me, the thing is where this is being introduced into people's workflows. So this is now inside of... So if you, for example, take the Make side of it, if you think about the vast majority of people using Figma, it is mainly UX designers who maybe code a little bit on the side, but for the most part, they're designers and user experience people who do user research and that kind of stuff. So they don't write React code, for example. So they will generate something with that, and they would not, like, for example, you saw all those type errors and stuff like that popped up. So they would not look at that, because even if they saw it, they wouldn't know what to do about it. They would just be like, it seems to still work, so I guess it's not that big of a thing. And then hit publish. And then that goes out because you can connect your own domain, so it's live for anybody to interact with. So what is the potential downside of shipping code like that out? Because remember, what a lot of CEOs are trying to do is reduce staff. So if your UX person can now type a prompt, get a site, and publish it, I can lay off a couple of developers because I don't need them anymore. More profits for me. It's happening today. I mean, Microsoft fired 6,000 people and then held the Bull conference. Those two things don't sit next to each other unless you're doing that to reduce your cost because you want to invest it into something you feel is more valuable right now than people. For me, the whole thing is it's irresponsible. Figma is a huge company. They are looked up to by a lot of people in the industry. And if they push this out, they're signaling that this is okay. You can do this. You can produce this. You can push it live. You can connect your own domain to it. And it's fine. We'll fix the other things over time. But what about all the sites that have been published between now and whenever they fix all these semantic accessibility problems? All those sites are still going to be on the internet. People are still going to inspect that and think this is an example of a good website, and I should go and do this myself this way. It's fine to make a paragraph instead of a heading, to use some weird thing that's not even a link and just put a raw link on it. It's cool. It's fine. That's a responsibility that you now tell people is fine. That's okay. And that's what it's when these big companies do stuff like this, and then they pedal back. And yes, it's only a beta. It's only a beta. It's the same thing that the AI companies is trying to get away with by saying, yeah, it's just a research preview. But then why the hell is it in the public then for everybody to use? Then it should be not public for public consumption. And I mean, this is bleeding into everything. This is bleeding into web standards now, where Chrome is irresponsibly shipping everything without worrying about where Safari and Mozilla is on this topic, because they come up with all kinds of excuses. Oh, yeah, but it's because if it's behind a flag, nobody tests it. So the only way we can have it tested is we'll just ship it and release, and then people can give us feedback. And then you break the API that people have now relied on, because they're shipping if in 137. They're shipping Flex Flow in 137, even though it's not fully baked yet, even though the standard is still in draft. There's two reasons why they're doing it. One is maybe they want to look like a really good steward because the DOJ is trying to force them to sell Chrome, and they want to be like, look at all the stuff we're doing. Do you really want us to sell Chrome? And the other side, it's like they're just trying to push, and nobody can keep up because nobody has the budget that Google has. And in the end of the day, a lot of people are shipping websites that only work in Chrome. We're seeing this. We've been here before. It wasn't pleasant, and we're going there again.
So I think I would push back on that a bit. Like, I don't actually think people are really going to use Figma sites, especially if especially if you talk from a optimization and a economic perspective. Like, I don't see how it is even if it created like fully amazing like accessible semantic HTML, I don't see how getting a designer to spend time designing something that you can just like pull from Wix or Squarespace or whatever is worth it. Like, I mean, like, you're spending time paying someone to have their butt on a seat dragging boxes and text and things around on a screen per hour to just push out a landing page. So I don't really see the like. So to me, like, it's a like it's a like, honestly, the target market I see for sites is CEOs. Is the people who need to give the yes or no in terms of is our organization going to use Figma? And it's a cool thing, and it's like, hey, check how cool this is. Yeah, like, let's use this product. I don't know, like, it's just like, it seems like the space that it tries to compete with is a space that's already oversaturated, that you can't really make a living off. I mean, like, Justin, you're a professional designer. I'm a professional designer. We spend most of our time designing software and designing like really intricate interactions and working in very constrained spaces, like being like, so, we spoke about that kind of like airline example that we just built right now. That's cool. And I'm impressed by that. And I do think we also need to be like, is this cool? Yes, like it is cool. Like it doesn't mean it's useful or it's helpful, but I think it's cool. Like if you were to show me that 5 years ago, I would be like, man, how cool is this? But like before the call, I also mentioned to Justin, there's a lot of cool stuff like fidget spinners or whatever. It's not really useful, but it's cool. And it might possibly be that this is something that's really cool, but I don't really think it's that useful. Because I just don't see many people building this. Like, what was that landing page thing that you just built now, Justin? What was that for? Like, I don't know. Like, do you remember?
It's basically a company
But-
marketing site. But I
But
mean,
yeah,
they
It's a
also
marketing
bring
site, yeah.
yeah.
but they
like,
also bring CMS into Figma, right?
That's the
Yeah,
plan,
but, like,
yeah.
Sure, but like I mean, like that, like there's so many better, cheaper solutions. Like keep in mind also, this is beta now; it's free. They're gonna have to monetize this. I just don't see how you can do this. I don't know. Like it feels like Wix, like all that stuff is like Framer, whatever. Like this is a solved problem, and it's not only a solved problem, but even with the solutions that there are already, like it's such a crowded space already. I just don't see from a business perspective trying to build anything here beyond something that's just cool and just helps like that little kind of pushing the person who gives the green light for the team to start using Figma. I don't know. Like, sorry. So what I was saying is, so Justin, you and me, we spend most of our time doing design, what I usually call like designing in the negative space, like kind of like all the facilitation, everything around, like I could work in a very constrained environment. So cool. Okay. They need to enter the number, but they need to enter the cost, but then it needs to calculate like the taxes or whatever. And that takes like 20 minutes because you're using some weird ass legacy endpoint. So now you need to figure out a UX solution to how do you present that in a way that a user isn't just looking at a spinner for 10 minutes. And like that's when I think about design and people that do design like as a job, that's the type of work that I find people do. And like let's also be real about like the design industry is like hemorrhaging jobs at the moment. Like even like a lot of the people who are just moving stuff around and whatever, there's no more work for that type of thing. Now that kind of like seed funding has kind of dried up and whatever, I just don't see in a professional design career how something like Figma Sites actually fits in. The type of people that I see build those type of things are people that kind of give like a full suite service. So they either do like WordPress or whatever, and they do the SEO, they do the copywriting, they do the hosting for you, they set up your emails for you, they buy a theme, they kind of do your social media for you. Like to me, paying someone who's skilled in visual design for that little part and then having that and like, okay, what do I do with this now? I just don't see the value. Like I honestly don't see how this would fit into anyone's professional kind of workflow. Yeah, I'm curious what your thoughts are, Justin.
I think, as Scott mentioned, the CMS that they're speaking of, I see that making inroads into existing places. Because there are a lot of companies that are Figma to Webflow, Figma to Squarespace, kind of that do that kind of work. Yeah, who are already paying for Figma because they see themselves as design companies who offer no code or low code or whatever you want to call it, forgetting that it's not really that, it's just someone else's code, solutions for, your brochure type marketing sites and so on. There are thousands of organizations that work like that. And they're paying for a Figma professional subscription, probably. They're paying for whatever Webflow. Webflow is very expensive if you want to use a CMS. They're paying for all of these separate things. Yeah. If Figma introduces a CMS to this and their site building becomes something that is useful and usable, and you're just telling it to create it from the design you're doing anyway, I see that as something that people will use. Yeah.
But do you think that is the people that use Figma? Because most of the people that I know that
absolutely.
Really? Because the people that I know that do that just jump straight into Webflow.
No.
Really?
I know lots of people are Figma first. Yeah.
Yeah. We also work with a external UX agency, and they also start in Figma, even though they might push it from there to something else, but they start in Figma. And if they can, so I think Figma wants to add all of these things, because even if they can take 2% of each of these other markets to their investors, it's enough. And but the other thing that is bad here, it's kind of happened with Adobe and it's happened with others. If they push out of all of these things, a lot of their customers might become dependent on these tools, and then they decide to retire them because it turns out it was a bad idea, like bringing a CMS. And then you are in a world of hurt, because now you've got a whole site running out there that was dependent on Figma having a CMS and everything built in. And if they rip it out, you're going to have to pay the bill at the end of the day to transfer your clients' websites over to something else. And they're going to be angry at you because why did you recommend this thing if you weren't sure about it? So I think there's certain little subtle things they shouldn't have done, especially like what Justin said earlier. If it's, well, actually if it's a beta, why can you already connect a custom domain? And for now, you don't even have to pay for the custom domain. For the first year, they're going to cover your cost right now. Yeah. And after that, they say it will cost something, but they don't disclose what it will cost, just that it will be something.
And that is, Figma does that all the time. They're like, dev mode, free. Yeah. And then suddenly, no, dev mode, it's out of beta now. Now you've got to pay for it. But you've been locked into dev mode for a whole year. Yeah.
But there's a part of me, and sorry, I maybe just want to say this, and I think then we should start throwing some of the text questions on the screen. It's like, it's also like, to me, sure, but like also like that is there's a part of me that's struggling to have sympathy for that, because like we saw what happened with the Adobe acquisition and whatever, and like and I think like if you decide to go all in with Figma, knowing kind of what has happened in the past, knowing kind of the decisions that were being made, and you don't have an exit strategy, like I mean, like that's a bit like, it's very hard for me to have sympathy for you. Like if you're the same with VZero as well, like people are just going like all in to VZero, kind of literally like coupling their code bases like so tightly with VZero, and then like but like it's like that is what makes a good designer or a good engineer or whatever is to kind of like anticipate those things and kind of make informed decisions around that. Like it's, I mean, like at some point like you can't blame this on Figma. Like it's just like people need to make better business decisions. Like I don't think it's Figma's job to prevent you from making bad business decisions. Like businesses are going to business, man, and they're gonna try and convert people and try and make money, and VZero is gonna try and get you into their closed ecosystem, as that's what a business does. That's how you increase profits. Like I also do think like it's, I think it takes away from people that actually make informed decisions and so forth if we just pretend like this is a Figma problem.
No.
Yeah.
I totally hear you. I hear you there, but I think two things. Like the first thing is, I feel like we need to push back on these irresponsible big tech
Yes,
attitudes of
I
just putting
agree.
shit out there, making people pay,
Yeah.
and they're not giving a hell what happens to the future of the businesses that you're impacting and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
I think they're just irresponsible, and they don't care because they get away with it time after time again, because they can just litigate in court forever because they have so much money they will never have to stop. Like Google, they don't really care about what's happening to them in court right now because they can just go back and litigate again and again and again. But in the end of the day, there are smaller businesses who are being impacted, who have to close their doors, who have to lay off a ton of people because they can't afford it anymore. And then the other thing is, with regards to a lot of, and that is where the responsibility comes in from a company perspective, where you need to be responsible for your customers and guide them based on really not just what's in it for you, but what's in it for them too, as a responsible, I don't know, business or company. Because I don't know, in the end of the day, the people who are aware of all these things that happen in the industry, there's not a lot of them. We are the select few who are really in touch with what's happening in the industry and who knows about all the things that's happened in the past with Adobe and most people have no clue. They just see Figma adding all these features and they think, oh my God, I'm going to save some money because I can cancel my Webflow and I can cancel this and I can go all in Figma, not thinking that, wait a minute, but they might not have my best interest in mind here. They might just be looking at a way to prop up their stock price for a while and then bail out. And then I'm left with the hot potatoes and having to deal with all the shit that falls out of that. And that is, to me, that's part of this irresponsible behavior of big tech companies, is where they'll put anything out there, and the negative effects of that, I don't care. I can just throw money at the problem because it's endless.
But I think that, go ahead, Justin.
No, just related to what Scott's saying is that Figma have
Which one?
Of Neertlen. The one with the beard after you shaved.
Yes.
Skulk with the beard. And Skulk without. We must also just bear in mind, Figma have been very clear about their intention to IPO.
Yes.
And
this is
whole
clear
rollout
IPO behavior. Yeah.
This is very much IPO behavior. That doesn't mean it's good or that they're going to change, because after their IPO, if anything, they'll just get worse, because then they'll be even more, we must bring value, growth at all costs, Silicon Valley mindset. In certification, as our friend Mr. Doktorov says.
Yes.
And we can see it. We saw it happening with Figma already when the Adobe buyout was before that. The Adobe buyout became public, when they were again rushing out half-baked things like variables that were hardly usable, and so on. And it seems to me, and this is the last thing I'll say on this, is that Figma is becoming less and less a tool for designers, and more like a tool for, as Skulk without the beard said, for CEOs. Less and less a tool for designers, and more like an enterprise thing, software that you have to have.
And the thing is, as well, is, it's also like, and we should really get into the questions now in a second, because I mean, this is a rabbit hole and we can just go down this forever. But I do also think obviously I have a bit of a chip on my shoulder on this, and that is that, things like PenPot exist. It has been around. Like, I use PenPot, and so open source things are not going to take off if people just actually use the VC funded stuff and complain about it. Like, it's either you
I understand that
use the VC funded thing and you take it for what it is, or you don't, and then you actually contribute to an open source thing and you have that grow. I think it's that classic thing of, like, I see people complain about it's maybe just like my own kind of like irritation of people complaining about this on LinkedIn and whatever. And it's like people complain about this and they complain about Figma and whatever, and then like we've tried no alternatives and we're out of options. It's like don't
We've
use
tried
the
nothing,
thing.
and we
Yeah, we've tried absolutely nothing. There's a ton of really great alternatives.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I completely get that. And Penpot's they're doing great stuff.
I'm loving Penpot so much. Yeah.
But after a certain point, I mean, we've been using. My company, we've been on Figma since it started.
Yeah.
We have so much legacy stuff in there.
Sure. But
it's
also you're in the
impossible to
enterprise
move,
space. And I there's an understanding that kind of working in the enterprise space, you're going to be using tools that are different than you would personally use.
Yeah, like Azure.
Yes, Microsoft stuff, and Microsoft Teams, and like all of that stuff. Okay,
no
cool.
comments.
Throw a question on the screen for us.
React or Angular? React. Next one.
Like let's pause. Let's pause.
That's
on
another
that
conversation.
Yeah, like so. I actually last year I did Sculpt Goes Angular. I did a year of Angular work, and I do think I have more of an appreciation for Angular. After that, I personally prefer React. Well, let me put it this way: so the question, if your question is around kind of employment, React hands down.
React.
There's no like if no like I would be very surprised if someone can prove me wrong. Like just the actual market share out there, and like just go on any job searching site or whatever. Like compare like the amount of vacancies for React positions compared to Vue, Svelte, whatever.
But Scott, a lot of big enterprise stuff is in on Angular.
.NET
client is Angular.
Yes.
.NET is or Angular. Like if you're in the .NET space, Angular is kind of the thing.
Sure.
But I agree with you. Yeah. React is huge. It's massive.
If you're coming at this in a vacuum, then Angular is probably not the best fit, because Angular is a really good fit if you come from a specific angle. If you come from already knowing C# or something. One thing I have to say, it's very trendy to shit on Angular. One thing that I really like about Angular is like they really try and adhere to web standards. But that's also why I don't like Angular, because I hate the DOM. And this is what I like about JavaScript. It just gets rid of the DOM and it says the DOM is a problem. We're just actually everything's a function. Don't worry about props and attributes and this thing being camel case and this thing being Pascal case, and you interfacing with SVG in this manner, but interfacing with this other thing, and like all the inconsistencies in the DOM. So if you like the DOM, Angular's for you. But yeah, cool. I do think having no prior experience and just purely looking at getting employment or whatever, React's probably the way to go. Yeah.
From Jean, or Juan, sorry. Is there value in adding functionality for adding semantic HTML accessibility attributes, etc.? Too technical for the user base, might as well learn how to use Webflow. I think this is referring to within Figma being able to select something Figma in the site, sites. A button, and checking accessibility and so on. I haven't used Webflow much, but Webflow is pretty good at doing this automatically, as far as I know.
Well, I think the thing is, this is the thing, is that a lot of these tools, these are the primitives that you work with. And I think this is why I don't see the appeal of taking a picture and converting it into a site. Because in Webflow, the primitives that you work with, Webflow, Framer, and whatever, is things around what is the semantic element? What is it? You drag that element in. In the same way in Figma, you would have a circle or a square, and you just drag it. and now you have to use AI to figure out what is this actual square when you think about it as HTML. In things like Webflow and so forth, instead of dragging in circles and squares, those are the primitives that you work with. And I do think at some point you're just going to get more bang for your buck by just working within the grain of the medium. And like a picture by definition has a lower fidelity. Like there's a lot of dots and spaces that the AI is going to have to fill and take a guess, because you're literally taking something that's encoded with less data and trying to turn it into something that's encoded with more data, that has more information, that is kind of like a higher resolution in terms of information. So the AI is going to have to just take guesses and add random shit. So at some point it's like, what is design? Design is those actual decisions, like adding that information. And if you just make a picture and like at some point, like where's the design? Like I don't know.
Once again, for me that's the fundamental flaw in this whole approach of taking a design tool and trying to make it a web development tool, is you are pushing the responsibility either down to the user, which they're not doing right now. So instead, you're then pushing the responsibility of figuring out intent to the AI. The AI needs to look at a picture and from that infer the intent of the designer. Did the designer mean for this to be a link or a button? And I mean, how many times does a link look like a button because it's styled that way, right? Because it's your CTA or something, but it actually is a link. It's not a button. At other times, it might look like a link, but it actually opens a modal, so it should actually be a button. But you have no way of indicating that, so therefore the AI must infer it based on what it knows. And the way that large language models work is it will never say, I don't know. If it doesn't know, it'll try the best guess it can come up with. And that's often how it goes down hallucination trips, is because it makes one decision which affects the next decision, and now your context window is getting garbled, and so your responses gets further and further away from the truth, and that's how you end up with a whole mess, because your context window is ruined. You have to kind of start over if you want a better result. That's why every time you invoke it, you get a different result potentially, because the context window looks different. The information within that context window is different, so the next word is going to be different. So I think that they made a fundamental mistake in thinking they can take a design tool and just flip it into a development tool without having to think about all the intricacies that we just talked about that is involved in taking a design into a development thing. That's why we have meetings between front end and UX to talk through the Figma designs and say, what were you thinking here? That's going to be problematic. Could we do it like this instead? Because it's easier to implement, or it'll be more accessible or more performant. Like, you're pushing all those decisions down to an AI that kind of has to now spin its wheels and come up with the best thing it possibly can.
I think it's also like
gaps,
and like I think some of my thinking around this is also, this is just something that predates AI. Like this idea of thinking about design in terms of pictures. Like this is something, like I've seen projects where the designers just made a picture of a website and just gave it to the engineering team. I've seen projects where that design was just thrown away because it was a nice picture of a website, but you couldn't really use it for anything. It's just like 95% of the design decisions weren't made in terms of what happens when you end up in this state. It's effectively the same as when someone designs a login screen. They give a input for your email, your password, and a button to log in or whatever, and they're like, cool, here's a design of a login screen. But like, cool, what happens if you enter the wrong password? What happens if you enter the wrong email? What happens if you don't have an account? What happens if the server is down? Like, what happens? And it's like, to me, like that, at some point, the way that AI is going to answer those questions is going to be so generic and based on convention that you're just better off just using a SHAD CN template. or a theme
Which-
forest. Yeah, like it's like
Yeah.
it's like,
Yes,
because
I mean,
like
even
I
in
don't.
that, sorry, Scott, even in that
Yeah.
case, it's going to be way faster for you to do that than to try to
Exactly.
prompt that out of an AI.
And this is what I'm saying is, like, I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of the cost involved here. Designers aren't
Yeah.
cheap. Okay.
No.
What is the point of having, like, I mean, like, we see this even nowadays. Like, a lot of teams just start with a component library. They don't even have a actual UI designer. They maybe have someone who has a bit of a like know-how in terms of kind of user flow and where things should go and so forth, more of a user experience thing. But how, like, a lot of projects, like, so Justin, I know you guys do like heavy like mock-ups and stuff, but that's because of the types of clients that you work with, and you need to present it to the client and so forth.
Yeah.
I see a lot of teams that just like straight up start like material UI or whatever, boop, 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 pulling the stuff in, let's go, there's no like, okay, someone's going to draw some squares and circles and then going to give that to a designer, and they're going to be like padding for, this is the exact swatch color, this is the gradient on hover. I think it's by definition, if you're using something like Figma Sites, you're working at a very granular level in terms of the design decisions that you make. Whereas I find that a lot of people, when they're doing quote unquote design, work at a higher level of abstraction. They're probably already working with some type of off-the-shelf tooling or component library or something, and they want to move fast. Especially if you're looking at something like Figma Sites, the goal would be to move fast. But it forces you to go really granular, where you could actually just move a lot faster by just working at higher levels of abstraction. And even if that level of abstraction is something like Wix or Squarespace, where you drag in a header, you drag in a whatever, you drag in, like, Figma Sites forces you to make a lot of that low-level decisions that aren't meaningful when you want something that's quick and that's that general purpose. Like, I get if you are IBM or you are whatever and you want your landing page, or you are, I don't know, Standard Bank or whatever, you want your landing page to be really a good reflection of your brand. It's really important. Then you're going to have someone that probably in Webflow kind of sweats the small stuff and so forth. But like, you wouldn't even consider like Figma Sites for something like that. Like, I can't imagine like APSA or Discovery or Virgin Active or whatever would consider using Figma Sites for their landing page.
No
So
chance.
so who does that leave then? Like, someone making a site for Bob the plumber. But
Yeah.
and I think this is what I meant when I said, like, I don't see how this fits into a professional tool set of anyone who's doing design professionally. I see this being used by people who are playing around and doing fun stuff and whatever. But
I think you're discounting the number of Figma to low-code tool companies there are out there.
But like, once again, like, is that like a lot of that, is that not just like a race to the bottom? Like, once again, are they doing like Makru or Superbalist or whatever? Or is that
No.
like, once again, is it like Bob the plumber or the guy on the corner, like
It's
some
exactly
doctor's practice? Yeah, but like,
yeah,
I mean, like,
that's what they are. Yeah,
sure, but like, I mean, like,
that's what the vast majority of people who are working on the web are working on. They're not building applications.
But yeah, I don't know.
I don't think anyone's going to be using Figma Sites in a serious way but as soon as they add a CMS, it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think the other thing is, like, when we spoke with Miriam's design, she talked about the narrative, and I think that is the important thing that's missing. We know, like, from a professional, people who have been in the industry and who are professionals and who actually care about our output and what we put on the web and what we sell to customers and all these kinds of things. We know that this is not the way you want to do it. We would never do that. But the Kool-Aid that's being sold is that, no, this is totally cool. This is going to 10x everything. And then the people who make the decisions are like, what? Tell me more. And then this is, like you said, a race to the bottom, where bigger and bigger companies are going to buy into this idea, because these bigger bigger tech companies are selling them Kool-Aid in a flavor that they love, which is more profits, less cost. And so that's why it's great that we talk about this stuff and point out the failures and point out the fact that it doesn't fit into in a responsible professional workflow, so that maybe somehow there's enough noise and it kind of groundswells and it comes to these people's ears and they're like, wait a minute, but I heard this and that guy and they said this and that thing and I don't know anymore how I feel about this. Because if we just are quiet down here and like, this is a stupid idea, nobody will ever use this, before you know it, you're applying for a job and they say, how much do you know about Figma Sites? And it's like, huh? What? And then the ship has sailed, and now a bunch of people are reliant on this stuff. Muted.
You muted.
Like, but those are also the companies that would just like hire people on Upwork or whatever. I think it's like the like I don't know. Like yeah, like it's, to me, if like who's this, like who what is Figma Sites possibly going to cannibalize? Some random guy in like Indonesia who can barely speak English, who's designing your site for you for like 30 Rand. And he gives it to you and it's just a mess of like divs and I've seen those things. I don't know. Maybe I'm being naive. I just don't
think so.
Is it?
I think you'd be surprised. But also we should, as an industry, we should aim to uplift the quality of the entire industry. Because we sit at the top, right? And we, like, I know like a lot of companies that I've worked for as well. I've then encountered other people and seen their work and been like, oh shit, I just assumed everybody cares as much as these people I work with over here. But turns out these people don't.
Sure.
And sometimes it's because they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the guidance, and they just constantly have deadlines pushed upon them. And in those scenarios, these tools seem kind of interesting.
I 100% agree, but I think like that's why I don't want to conflate the tools with the underlying practices there. I mean, like, you know, like I can speak hours about like kind of tech bros and disaster capitalism and, you know, like and trying to kind of like push squares into every circle-shaped hole with no regard for who it impacts or what it does further down the line. But like I think like there's a danger also in thinking that this is something inherent about like AI or whatever, you know. It's like this has been going on, and like I think it's like the problem is much deeper. Like, as I said, you know, pre-AI, these were the type of people who were just like, we're going to fire our entire dev team and just get some random Upwork people to build the thing. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. I think it's I don't.
Talking about Figma is important though, because it's such a big part of the world we work in. Far more than something like Webflow or Squarespace or Wix or whatever.
Yes, but to me that's a very different world from. And I think like maybe I'm just isolated from a lot of this, as you mentioned, you know, like Figma to X tools and whatever. And I'm just privileged insofar that the type of work I do in Figma is a lot of like really wrestling with things and trying to get to the bottom of design solutions and not just like design sweatshop work. So it might just be that I'm kind of like naive in that sense, that I just assume that's kind of how everyone else uses Figma. Like if you're trying to be productive and push out, like you just forego Figma entirely.
Just go and go to the Figma community page and sort by Figma, Scott. You'll see what people are using it for.
Yeah, I don't know.
I hate to interrupt, but I'm going to need to run. I have a dinner.
Yes.
I have to go to.
Okay.
I just want to quickly just respond to Raymond. Raymond, I've put the link into our Discord. Please join there. We have a beginner support program, and please just have a look around there on the Discord, and feel free to chat to message any of us on there.
Yeah. And so before you head out, like, let's say I'm happy to give this question of the night to Yuan, I assume is how it's pronounced.
Same.
Yeah, I think that's a good
Yeah.
one. And
Yeah.
I think it kind of highlights the, at some point, if you go down that route, you end up with Webflow. Like
Absolutely. No,
you
you're right.
accidentally built Webflow. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. This was really great, guys, and I do think it's like, even despite me saying that I don't want to go into too much speculation, I don't want to talk too much about. Okay. Guess the voucher's
Thank
going
you.
to me, guys. Gotta buy that Ferrari on Takealot.
The die-cast Ferrari.
Despite me saying I want to really resist the temptation to go into talking about, is this inherently good or bad, and it like, you end up there because there's actually just so little concrete here, and I think beyond some point it's just like all speculation in terms of how people going to use this.
Yeah.
What is this actually for? Like, yeah.
Well, let's revisit this in a year.
Yeah, I'm. Let me make a prediction. I think it's going to be a nothing burger. I think.
I think it's going to be held onto, despite it not maybe being a nothing burger, because it's going to be seen as, no matter what, we've got all these additional features. You must invest in this company. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't see actually any. I think in a year from now, it's going to be kind of exactly still where it is right now. Effectively, something that was just rushed out for config,
Maybe.
as
We'll
some
see.
type of like hyper marketing and for the IPO, and people are just going to say like, there's so much potential here, but it's just like not moving. That's my prediction. It's like, people are going to feel like there's a lot of potential. Mistakenly, I don't think there is a lot of potential, but people are going to feel, but like, Figma is just not really refining this thing. And like, the reason why I think that it's going to be in that place is because I can't see the business value for Figma to spend time refining this thing. It's a hard problem to solve. Even if you solve it, it's for a market that's already oversaturated with tools that are much better. I purely see it as a thing they pushed out for config, for marketing. I mean, we're talking about Figma. We're doing an entire session just on Figma now,
Yeah.
So to me, I think like my prediction, let's revisit this, but my prediction is, in a year, nothing really comes from this, and people are going to be like, oh, you remember that Figma Sites thing and how everyone just lost their shit about it? And like, whatever happened to that,
Skulk,
But yeah.
I appreciate that, but I really
See you in a year. See you in a year, Justin.
Thanks so much, guys.
All right, guys. Have a great evening. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.